Welcome tonight to the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, March 1st. As we always do, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for bearing with us, folks. First up, we have Police Chief Quarterly Report. Chief, come on up. No podium here, so you get to sit at the desk.
Back at the hot seat.
In the hot seat.
My favorite place.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So we'll jump right in with some of our more notable incidents from the past quarter. In early January, our detectives began a narcotics investigation into the flow of drugs into Walpole, most notably fentanyl. They were assisted by the North Attleboro Police Department, and as a result of the case, they executed a search warrant in that jurisdiction, which resulted in the seizure of 90 grams of fentanyl, $4,300 in U.S. currency, and a firearm. It was a great case by them. They worked really hard, and it interrupted the drug flow into this town, which is huge for us. So the case is now before the grand jury for indictment, so we're looking forward to that getting prosecuted as we move forward. In early February, officers responded to a residence on Norfolk Street for an unresponsive person inside a detached garage at that property. Incredibly high unsafe levels of carbon monoxide were detected inside the garage, and our officers arrived on scene first and ended up extricating that individual out to fresh air, and he was later transported by the fire department for treatment. Unfortunately, the victim had passed away in that, but the officers acted heroically that day in removing that victim from inside that garage. It was very unsafe, and I commend them for their efforts during that incident. Most recently, this past weekend, we had a motor vehicle crash at Washington Street and Polly Lane, which unfortunately resulted in one fatality. Our thoughts are with the victim in that crash, for sure, and their family. The crash reconstruction is still ongoing at this time, but preliminarily it appears as though speed was a factor in that crash, but there'll be more to come as the investigation progresses. End of last week, we also had a pedestrian crash at East Street near Diamond Street, right at the crosswalk there by Blessed Sacrament. Two victims were struck right on the crosswalk towards the edge of the roadway, and they were transported for treatment for what I would call serious but non-life-threatening injuries. It's very early in the investigation with limited witnesses at that scene at that time of night. We're still waiting to interview them, and will be more information to come on that investigation. The driver remained at the scene during that crash and was cooperating, so there was no issues there, but more to come as that investigation progresses. We also dealt with some parking issues. I know it's kind of been discussed lately across the street by the COA. As a result, we kind of blocked off some parking for them, for the seniors to access the COA with a little more ease, while also balancing the needs of the high school kids that are parking up there as well. So it seems like we've resolved the problem for now, but we're going to monitor that as we go forward and make sure that everybody can get what they need out of that lot. Moving on to some of the mental health related issues we've been dealing with. We finished 2021 with over 600 mental health related calls. We average about 40 to 50 calls per month, we're on pace again this quarter, again with those type of calls. We are in the process of, as I've been before you before with the clinician, mental health clinician, we're looking to get, we've had some great conversations with advocates as well as with Riverside Community Care, who is in our area of service. So we're working closely with them. They've analyzed our data on mental health related calls, and they've determined that we have more than enough need for a full-time clinician, so we don't have to share one with another agency. There'll be a full-time clinician here within our department, 40 hours a week. They'll work out of our station and ride with our officers and respond to calls related to mental health related or crisis and those things of that nature. So that's a huge development for us. Lieutenant White, who's around here somewhere, is actively applying for that grant through DMH. Once that funding is determined, we'll work jointly with Riverside to hire that individual to make sure it's a good fit for our agency and our needs. So again, it's still kind of progressing, but we're definitely going in the right direction with that, and we're hoping in the next several months we can get some real progress on that front. They will also help with our overdose outreach as well, which is our detectives are doing that now, so that'll be a big help as well to reach out to people that are suffering from substance use disorder. Statistically, our calls for service this quarter were just over 3,300. That was down from 4,100 in the fourth quarter of 2021. Our arrests, we had 20 this quarter. We had 29 at the end of last year. Overdose data, we had 4 so far this year with unfortunately 1 fatality. that was opioid-related. We had one in the fourth quarter of 2021 as well. So we had 5 at this time last year, so we're kind of on the same pace, unfortunately, with the overdoses. We have seen a trend downward in that category, so that's a positive. But it certainly it is still an issue, of course. Longview Farm, we had 52 calls for service up there this quarter. That was down from 64 calls in the fourth quarter last year. And year-to-date, at this time last year, we were at 82. So we are down a little bit. But one thing I will mention is that we've had some issues up there with some repeat clients who have been causing some problems for our officers. They deal with them quite a bit. They run away quite a bit. Some of the same things we have been dealing with. The good thing is that our liaisons that are assigned to that school have been extremely helpful in working with DCF and with the home and the campus director to solve the problem and ultimately find a better place for these kids to go. And I think at this point now, they're in the process of finding them a better place for them to live. So that'll be a win for both the school, for the kids, and for us, so we're not responding quite as much. So although the calls are down, we had some repeat offenders, but we're working through that now. And I think relationship is still good with them, which is positive. In terms of community policing, we'll go back into just after Christmas. We did our Santa Cop again this year, which is pretty much when we hang ornaments in the lobby of our station on a tree. People can come in and buy a gift for a family in need. So we were fortunate enough to be able to serve over 55 kids this holiday season with donations from the public. So that was great, and our officers and dispatchers did a lot on that front, and they would deliver those gifts to those kids. So that was great. We attended the holiday stroll over at the Council on Aging. We had a great time spending some time with the seniors. Fitz here, our dispatch supervisor, got dressed up as Clocker as well to really knock it out of the park with that. And SRO Hart and Rebel were dressed up as the Grinch, so that was a big hit. I missed the memo in the costume, thankfully, so I just had my regular attire on, conveniently. SRO Hart obviously connects to Alice training up at Walpole High School on professional days. He did two trainings so far with some of the staff, so again, we want to keep them up to date on the latest tactics when it comes to that. And finally, we've been kind of waiting to get the results on the U.S. Attorney General's Office Excellent Community Policing Award. Tommy Hart's been a finalist in this, and we're waiting to find out whether he won it or not. So if he did, we will be all trucking down to D.C. to help him celebrate that. So fingers crossed he gets that award. It's definitely well-deserved for all he does for us, for sure. In terms of some grants, we have our EOPS road safety grant. Again, we're doing some pedestrian enforcement. Drives over, get pulled over, and click on a ticket. The $35,000 award to the department, so we'll be using that to enforce the traffic and traffic-related issues, and especially in light of the crash we had, some pedestrian enforcement as well. The funding is also there to train 6 more officers to go to an ARIDE training, which is Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement. It helps them better detect when operators of motor vehicles are driving impaired of alcohol or drugs. So we get some more training on that front. That will be a huge plus. Also, as part of that grant, SRO Hart will be involved in teaching school bus safety, bike safety to kids in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. So that'll all be kicking off once we can get the curriculum set up with that. In terms of some personnel related issues, moves, I should say, Officers Crown and Slavin completed their temporary duty assignment to detectives in the fall and into most recently the past couple of months. They both worked in a variety of cases, fit in well with the unit, and did an incredible job. They're both back assigned to their patrol division now, but they did a great job in that role, and it's good to see our officers move into investigative work and get them a taste of the other side of the job. Officer Timpany, who I believe is here tonight, he was appointed at the end of December. He's wrapping up his field training soon, and he'll be on the road in the near future. Things are going very well with him, so we're excited to get him on the road. As you know, at the end of January, Anthony Antonelli and John Holmes were before you. They started the academy on February 7th. Things are going very well with them, which is great as well. So they're about a month into their training, and we'll be looking forward to seeing them towards the end of the summer. We're also looking to hire a new dispatcher right now to replace Mr. Holmes, who was one of our own dispatchers who had made the jump to become a police officer. So we're in the process of that right now. Officer John Wilmot, he retired at the middle of January after 32 years of service between the Boston Municipal Police Department and WPD. He served as our armorer for many years, and he was always a fixture up at the range for us. So we're going to hold a fill with him and his area of expertise, but we all wish him the best and a happy, healthy retirement for sure. And again, tonight, we will bring before you shortly the candidate for deputy chief. We did an assessment center at the end of end of January, and so we had 3 candidates go through that. We had Sergeant Brian Becker and Mike Benner, who both did incredibly well in that process. It's a difficult process. It's very stressful, and I think they both performed well. It definitely spoke to their skill set and to our talented candidate pool that we have within our department. We're very fortunate. So Lieutenant Rob Kilroy scored top on that assessment, and he'll be before you shortly here for appointment. And as a result of that promotion, we'll be looking to backfill a lieutenant and a sergeant within the next month or so. So we'll be working on that, working on that as we speak, and we'll be back before you hopefully within the next month or so. So that wraps up all I have for the quarterly report. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for the chief?
No, that's a great report. I have a quick question, actually. I just wanted to ask you about any stings that, you didn't mention it in your report, but alcohol and tobacco stings, is that something that you have any plans for?
Yeah, so our detectives have done that in the past several months, and then we'll monitor those establishments for any issues. What we'll do is we'll end up making a notice to them, to area businesses, and go ahead and go out and conduct underage drinking enforcement, whether it be actually sending an operative into a establishment or just monitoring a parking lot. So we've done a few of those recently. We haven't done a full-scale sting in a while because of COVID, but we're looking to do that again in the near future.
Both
yes.
tobacco and alcohol?
Both, yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Glenn.
I would just comment that, the Longview Farm is always on our radar. I understand that their calls are down, but there's still a lot of activity up there, so just want to make sure that you keep us posted on that, and if you need us to have a sit-down with the folks at Longview, happy to do that again.
Absolutely, yeah. I was cognizant of the fact that we've been dealing with some of these folks more regularly. We're in a different place with our relationship with them, and it's been incredibly helpful to have a good relationship with the campus director. I understand the issues we've had in the past, and I certainly will keep you apprised of any changes in that relationship. But right now, it's between the liaisons and the campus director. We've worked well together, and we're solving problems as they come up. Unfortunately, some of these kids are just going to have problems, and we understand that, and we deal with it as they came. We just had some issues with the same kids causing the same problems, so that's when we had to start making some changes. So thankfully, the relationship is still very good with them. But yes, I will certainly keep you apprised if things change.
Great, thanks, Chief.
I think we're all looking forward to the next step. Jim, would you like to make a motion?
Well, do we want to?
Sorry, Chief, would you like to make a few comments first?
I'll go through, sure. I had a bunch of bulleted notes that I left on my desk, so I'll just read his resume verbatim for everybody, because you've all heard me talk enough tonight, right? All right, so again, as I had mentioned, Lieutenant Rob Kilroy, he scored top on the assessment that we had just gone through that process, and he interviewed before your board just as recently as last week. He's been a police officer for 23 years, started in 1999 with the North Attleboro Police Department. He joined Walpole PD in 2009. He has served in a number of roles here, including obviously a patrol officer. He was assigned to detectives for a period of time. As a sergeant, he went to supervise the detective division, where he oversaw criminal investigations, court prosecution, property and evidence, a host of specialty things that require a lot of organization and ability. So he served in that role until he made lieutenant in 2017, and since that time he served as our patrol commander, where he oversees all the day-to-day operations for the patrol division, employee scheduling, handling complaint resolutions as they come in. If the sergeant can't manage that in the lobby of the station, he has to conduct those investigations and manage all that, and he does a phenomenal job at it right now. So I'm pleased to bring him before you tonight as a candidate for deputy chief. I think he has the skill set needed to be very effective in that role, and I'm certainly looking forward to what the future holds tonight. So,
Great.
Rob, you want to go over and join us?
Rob, would you like to say a few words? I didn't mean to jump the gun earlier. I think this is a great moment, and I'm really looking forward to your promotion. So.
I wouldn't have complained if we skipped it and got right to
Okay.
it. So. First of all, thank you for allowing me to sit before you tonight. As the chief mentioned, I've been with the department for the past 13 years, coming up on my 23rd year in law enforcement in April. Since coming here to Walpole, my career has really flourished. I've been provided with a number of opportunities that have really allowed me to explore law enforcement and advance myself. I've been fortunate to work with a number of great people, a number of great mentors, to include Chief Stillman, Chief Carmichael, Chief Kelleher, who I've pretty much been intertwined with since coming over here. I truly believe this is the best police department in the Commonwealth. We have excellent people working for us. We've made it a priority to hire the right people. And I believe that everyone we have working for us really buys into our community-oriented mission. I truly believe that these are fantastic individuals, not just police officers, but people. They come in, they give 100% every day, and I truly believe that they care about this community. So to say that, like I said, this is, in my opinion, one of the finest police departments in the Commonwealth, and I feel privileged to work here. I feel that it's an honor to serve with these people every single day. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the people that helped get me here. As I mentioned, Chief Stillman, Chief Carmichael, Chief Kelleher, but in particular, my family, friends, and peers. In particular, my wife, Kerry, who has been by my side for this whole crazy adventure of 23 years. Nothing's ever the same every day in and out. So with her by my side, I've been able to weather the storm. In addition to that, my children, William and Grace, have always been my support system at home, and it's really helped to progress my career, as well as allow me to maintain balance in my personal life as well. In conclusion, it is an honor to sit before you tonight, and I thank you very much.
I would just say congratulations. I think you're going to do a great job. And, you've done a great job in the past, and I think this is a great promotion for you, so
Thank you, sir.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any other select board members have any comments? Jim, would you, go ahead.
I'd just like to say that congratulations, Rob. This is a good promotion, and you're the right person for the job. I would also say that as we went through the interview process, that I think it's great, Chief, the depth that you have in this department. And both Sergeant Becker and Sergeant Benner were excellent candidates for this opportunity as well. And I think it says a lot about what you just said, Rob, about the people in the department, excuse me, and the nature of the work we do here. And it's so good to see talented professionals being able to come up through the ranks and take on roles like this. And it was really encouraging to me to spend time with you, with Sergeant Becker, with Sergeant Benner, and see just what we have here in the Walpole Police Department. It's a great team. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I like the idea that we have the greatest police department in the Commonwealth. I'm gonna go with that, keep it going.
Put it on the door of the cruiser.
Jim, would you like to make a motion?
I would. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Rob Kilroy as Town of Walpole Deputy Chief of Police.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Come on up. Why don't you face the crowd? So just get the pinning on camera and with your family. Yeah, if you want to take a picture, just come right up.
Congratulations.
Take one more. You walk away.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the audience, you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you don't need to. Don't feel free to leave whenever you're ready, okay? We're going to go on for another hour, so. Thank you.
You can go this way, but I want to say goodbye. Oh, and I want this basket. Oh.
Hopefully they're okay. I mean,
Okay, so I guess they're going downtown. Okay.
Sorry, Stacy, I thought they would all stay for you too, so. Since I don't see Chief Bailey right here, why don't we jump ahead one item? Veteran Services Committee interviews and vote for appointment of Stacy Murphy. Stacy, come on up to the table. Welcome. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, we've seen the paperwork. Why don't you just give us a little more background?
Yeah, I've just been, veterans have always held a special place in my heart. I think their service, what they do for America to keep my family safe and my friends safe is just something that's, it's very honorable, and I just have always wanted to support them. So going back years ago when the children had school off and they were not getting out of bed for any reason, I organized a veterans breakfast at my house, inviting all the neighborhood kids, including veterans. Chief Carmichael has been there, Phil Mackey, many, many others have come for the years just to get the kids to be more supportive of our veterans, and then we would come downtown for the service. And I've been a helper with Honor Flight New England, and I've been up here downtown for years just trying to support. So I just approached Rita last year, and I was like, I'd like to help more. My kids are getting older now, and I have more time. So she said, yeah, let's contact, and here I sit today. But yes, I just want to, give my service to those guys who help keep us free and safe every day.
Great, I would say thank you. One of the things I try to remember to say is, I think one of the things that makes Walpole great is the number of volunteers we have across the board in all different activities that really give them themselves and their time freely. And I think that really helps make Walpole a great town, so thank you.
Yeah, lifelong residents.
Any other questions or comments for
Thanks,
Stacy?
Stacy, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll make a motion to appoint Stacy Murphy as a regular member of the Veteran Service Committee effective April 1st.
Seconded?
So motion to second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Just one note on that. Rita reached out to us, who's the chair of the Veteran Services. They may be looking to expand that committee in the next couple of months or something like that and get some more associate members. I know there was some interest for other people to serve on there, so more to come.
I think that'd be great.
I didn't hear.
Just that you may want to expand the board with some associate members, so
Yes, you'll be getting something very soon.
I think that's great.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. Next up, we have Fire Chief Tim Bailey for the quarterly report. Welcome, Chief.
Welcome. So the last time I was before you was on December 7th. So we finished out 2021 with 4,296 emergency calls, which was 643 over last year, 3,734 inspections and permits for 8,030 calls for service. Volume continues to increase. We're up 18.5% from last year, and we're actually up 49% since 2012. Our ambulance current balance in the account is $2,642,101. Current budget, very tight on some lines, but I'm watching it closely, and we're still doing okay, just keeping an eye on it. Capital, both engines were ordered. They're slated to be in April of 2023. Turnout gear is in process. Thermal cameras have been ordered and are in service at the fire station on all the apparatus. The pickup truck is, we're working through the process, or actually waiting for delivery. It was supposed to be last week. We're hopeful in the next week or two. The UPS batteries for the station has been completed, and the portable radios are still in process. On the grant end of things, SAFE grants were just awarded, totaling $8,230. We got $5,175 for the SAFE for the schools, and $3,055 for the senior SAFE program that we coordinate with the COA on. We're also awarded a DFS equipment grant. It's a safety grant for $13,387. With that, we purchased and upgraded our combustible gas detectors and CO detection equipment. That is also in service as of today. We applied for a RIT live fire training drill through the AFG grant process. This will require a 10% match if we're afforded the grant. That was for $157,998. That would be using outside vendors for that. The SAFER grant, we did put in for 4 firefighters. That grant period will be starting to be awarded after May 30th and should be completed by September 30th. Station 2, we're doing some minor renovations down there, taking place for the changes in our workforce and to make things a little bit better. We had a little bit of an outbreak with COVID back in December and early January, and hopefully this will make our separation distances a little bit better down there, and will be better in the long run. Training was curtailed because of the outbreak of COVID over the last couple of months, but we were able to get our med flight training in, which was done in-house, where they came out and briefed us on what their procedures are for getting med flights into the community. Building familiarizations continued, and we also worked on our ice rescue techniques. On personnel, Erica Thomas, Chris Luongo, and Sean Siney will be graduating Friday from the Bridgewater Fire Academy. We'll be welcoming them on board next week and putting them right onto shift. Elizabeth Hunt, who we hired back in October, will be going to the Fire Academy in April, graduating in June. Francesca, also hired in October, will be going in August, graduating in November. Chris Malloy, one of our most recent hires, will be going in September, graduating in November. And we have several that are in the process of taking their PAT. We have 3 this week alone. One on Thursday, 2 on Friday. They'll be taking their PAT. Once that's complete, they'll be able to put in for the Fire Academy. And we're waiting on the other 2 right behind them and should be following suit very shortly thereafter. As far as the injuries go, we still have the 1 injury that's out, and it's still in process, going through the process. It's a lengthy process for to take care of that individual. So we are still in process with that. And the last thing I have is 4th of July. We are hoping to do the 4th of July this year. We're looking at that and working in that direction.
Great. So I just want to say on the record, as you know where I stand, I think it's great that we're hired all the new firefighters. They're going through the academy, and they'll be over a period of months coming on board. So that'll be great to get fully staffed up. So the other thing that's an issue that we're all starting to think about is ambulance rates. We periodically adjust ambulance rates. We're not going to vote the ambulance rate idea today. It's not before us to vote. But what I was going to suggest is that we get the questions we have about the ambulance rates, the change process, how the billing works, out on the table right now. And if you have answers, that'd be great. If not, we'll defer them to either our next meeting or our meeting at the end of the month, where we'll put it on the agenda and maybe even do a workshop format where we come in before 7 o'clock and, can sort of sit around the table and sort of talk about the issues. So ambulance rates, I think, are complicated because they involve a lot of money. It's a revenue source for the town and the fire department, but it also has an impact on people with their insurance or Medicare, or if they're uninsured. And I think the board's going to want to understand all those issues kind of better. So I'll open it up to questions and comments from the board. Let's get our questions out there. And, if there's answers available, we'll go to them. If not, we'll save them for the next time we bring that back up. Anybody want to start?
Yeah, I'll make
Glenn?
a couple comments and a couple quick questions. How you doing, Chief?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm doing good. So the first comment is that I think, as Mark said, the ambulance rates, it's time to, good idea to revisit them every couple of years, make sure they're in line with surrounding communities and what's appropriate for the service that we provide. Obviously, insurance pays for these rates. They're not generally coming out of somebody's pocket, so it makes sense to charge the right amount. I also think with the Norwood Hospital, I think it's worth mentioning that Norwood Hospital being closed and us not transporting people 4 miles down the road and instead 20 miles to Boston or to Needham or Brockton and wherever, is an issue. It costs us more money, mileage. It costs people being out of pocket and out of the community, and our ambulance being out of service sometimes more than we need it to be, and relying on other communities around us. So I do think that the rate should reflect that, the fact that Norwood Hospital isn't going to be reopening anytime soon, years, I imagine. So with that in mind, I just want to ask you a couple quick questions, if you can, Chief, about the rates. I'm looking at the chart on my computer, and so I'm looking at basic life support, emergency, advanced life support, and we charge different amounts for those. And then I think we also get reimbursed a different amount for Medicare and probably Medicaid as well. Could you just run through that real quick with me, just so I can understand it a little bit better?
So on the rates, I can just touch on the rates. BLS is the BLS rate, that's basic life support.
Yeah.
On the ALS, is a different rate there. So the ALS2 is when we use multiple drugs.
Got it. And I'm sorry, I did have a question. Which is the more, popular is definitely the wrong word, but which is the more, you understand what I'm trying to get?
Common.
Frequent, thank you, common. Rate.
I'll have to get you a concrete answer on that, but we use both quite frequently.
You do, advanced and basic?
Medications are pushed almost regularly.
Between basic and advanced, is it, is it
Oh, that's about a 50-50 split.
I understand, okay, got it. And do you have a percentage or an approximate amount of Medicare and Medicaid transports?
So keep in mind that this is not, I do. This data, though, is, I asked for a full year's data, and for '21. And '21 is not finished yet. It's usually about 2 months behind, so we're still missing November and December. So just keep that in mind. But up until that point, Blue Cross was 182 transports, Medicaid 304, Medicare 1,038, other insurance 303.
Would you mind repeating that one more time for me?
Sure, all of them.
Yeah, please.
Blue Cross 182,
Yeah,
Medicaid 304,
okay,
Medicare 1038,
yeah.
other insurance 303.
Okay, so it's over 400 on the Medicare and Medicaid, and I'm calling that out because we get reimbursed, I think, close to a third. 33% may not be, I'm just looking at it quickly, but between $300 and $400 and $500 instead of $1,500 for Medicare and Medicaid. So it's a significant decrease in the amount that we're able to get for those. And it's not, doesn't matter what our rate is. If our rate is $1,500 or $2,000, we're gonna get the $500 or whatever the Medicare rate is. Is that right?
That is correct. So on the Medicare, Medicaid, for example, up until, like I said, end of October-ish, 304, total charges was $709,188. Total allowable, which means all that we could get, was $103,587.
Seventh, yeah.
We collected $100,875 for a 97.38 collection rate. So, which is about, we're always right around there.
Okay,
With
so the
collect-
government's paying us.
We always receive those payments.
Good. And then on the non-government insurance, what's the payment percentage on those?
On the,
Collectible.
on the self-pays?
The Blue Cross and the other insurance?
Oh, sure. On the Blue Cross, it's total charges for the 182, $452,400. Total allowable, $404,944, so much more is allowable.
Yep.
Total collected, $377,34, or 91%.
Okay, and then can we talk, I think Mark wanted to talk a little bit, well, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you had mentioned it to me, the uninsured and the uncollectible. Is that 9%?
So we had 50 that were on the self-pays. Insured was 50, self-pay uninsured 72.
And what happens in those situations? Who collects that? Not the town, as that goes to a private collection agency?
No, we actually tried to collect that, but the collection rate on that is very, very poor.
Okay.
So with that, what ends up happening is 3 bills are sent to the patients in 30-day intervals. If no response, a collection letter is sent to the patient. If no response, the patient is reported to Experian Credit Bureau on behalf of Walpole. At this point, the collection is very doubtful and the account is written off for accounting purposes. If the patient subsequently pays, we reinstate the bill and process the payment.
If in that situation, if somebody reaches out to you and requests a negotiation or to change the amount on the bill, is that something, a conversation that happens?
It can happen. It has happened in the past. Those were always brought before the select board.
I got it, okay. All right, that's all.
Because I'm not allowed to adjust the bill. The board
Without us.
has that authority, correct?
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, sure.
Ben?
Sure. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
So we talked about, and I know we're jumping around a bit here, and there's a lot of numbers getting thrown around,
Mhm.
particularly for the people that are following, but we talked about the self-pay and the poor collection rate and how that goes. What about the Medicaid and Medicare, since they only pay some percent. You had said out of the amount billable, there was only a certain percent that could be collected. And out of that, you collected 97% of it.
Correct.
So then what is the other 75%? Is that follow the same path as the,
So there's two portions to that. On the Medicaid, the amount allowed is per the fee schedule.
Yep.
And that must be accepted as payment in full.
Yep.
Patients pay nothing
Right.
on Medicaid. On Medicare, insurance pays 80% of the allowed fee per their schedule, and the patient is responsible for a 20% copay. Many seniors, however, have a supplemental insurance which pays the copay.
Yep.
If the patient does not have a supplement, they are billed the 20% copay.
right?
Please note the difference between the Medicare fee schedule amount and Walpole's rates is not billable and is adjusted out of contractual allowance.
Okay. All right, thank you. I guess I would just say, generally speaking, I'm not inclined to raise these rates. For the reason, even though it's a very small percent of people that self-pay, and then a small percent of people that have Medicare that may not have a rider coverage or something else that takes care of the other 20%, that is a small percentage of the calls you get. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that and take that into account. And I think that, for me anyways, weighs more than the percentage of the calls. It's more important that we take care of these folks since they're in need. There are probably a lot of those people that have multiple uses as well in a given period of time, whether it's a year or whatever. They're using it more than other folks. That being said, I know that the ambulance fund is an important source of revenue for the town. We use it for purchasing equipment. We use it for even the operational budget in certain aspects. So I would be open to hearing, we've talked a lot about what we need for the fire department. We need more firefighters. We need more personnel. If there's a way to fund that through this, if that can help us alleviate those personnel shortages, then I would certainly like to hear about it. And I know Mark said, we're gonna have some more conversations about that. So I am open to that, and hearing more about, well, if we increase the ambulance rate by 10%, that $140 over this many calls over the year could pay for an extra 3 firefighters, or whatever the case may be. I'm certainly open to having those conversations. So I appreciate all the info.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up on what you just said, I'd also be open to the idea of, if it's Medicare, the 20% that there are some people struggling with, maybe we can take a look at that and see if there's a policy we could put in place for people who just flat out don't have the money, just like we do sometimes with taxes. And so that would be something we could consider. And again, I'm just speaking off the cuff. I haven't given this a lot of thought, but maybe that's something we can circle back on at the next get-together.
Okay.
Jim?
Yeah, so I agree with what you just said in terms of some kind of exception that we could put in place to people who truly can't afford it. I think that's certainly what we should do. And I won't reiterate what everyone else has said, but agree.
No, it's a relatively short warrant, 18 articles. Finance Committee's already started to make their way through the budget, and they're moving on to the articles next week. We cover a variety of topics, including the Walpole Media Corp budget, stormwater control bylaws, sewer and water in-year budget adjustments, and fiscal year '23 budget adjustments, the personnel bylaws, personnel salary schedule, and the deletion of references to the personnel board in the charter and the general bylaws. I outlined a whole explanation to the Personnel Board and to Finance Committee as to why we're asking to move forward with this now. The Personnel Board's currently 3 members. Dan's had a difficult time filling those positions. And for the most part, it's gotten to the point where we need, the full-time staff is doing the job now. The function of, discussing the salary schedule, setting the living adjustment can be undertaken by the Select Board, and essentially we'll present that to the Finance Committee and town meeting. So more to come on that, and I know that we'll continue to work on it and explain it to town meeting as we get closer to it. So that's about it.
Any questions or comments for Jim? Okay, Jim?
Motion to sign the spring 2022 town meeting warrant.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up, vote to accept the resignation of David Nardelli from the Walpole Housing Partnership with thanks.
Motion to accept the resignation of David Nardilli from the Walpole Housing Partnership with thanks.
Seconded?
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Vote to award bid contract 2022-08, Recreation Department Programming and Feasibility Study to Weston and Sampson. Jim?
Yeah, sure. So, that microphone's acting up. So, what we have before us is 3 contracts before you tonight. The first being the feasibility study for Weston and Sampson to review some of the recreation programs. Town meeting appropriated $50,000 for that back in the, what was that, the spring, the fall, and we're set to move forward with that. So we've worked with Weston and Sampson in the past, and I'd recommend favorable action.
Any comments or questions? Jim?
Motion to award bid contract number 2022-08, Recreation Department Programming and Feasibility Study to Weston and Sampson, and authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents.
Do we have a second?
Seconded?
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up, vote to award bid contract 2022-11, Fields Concession Stand to Northern Contracting. Jim?
Sure. Recommend favorable action on that to Northern Contracting. You may recall that we've been working for some time on this with the Norfolk County to get some funds towards that. And now that we've gotten the bids in hand, I believe we received 6 competitive bids. I'd recommend favorable action. Kevin Uniac has been working with Don Anderson and Rick Mattson, myself and Patrick to get this bid off the ground. I'm glad that we're going to be awarding this tonight, and hopefully we get the shovels in the ground sometime this summer. So recommend favorable action.
Yeah, it seems like contract bids are going up, 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 so it'll be good to get this going. Any comments or questions for Jim? Jim?
Motion to award bid contract number 2022-11, Fields Concession Stand to Northern Contracting, and authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents.
Seconded?
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Vote to award contract for Transportation Engineering Services, Downtown Walpole Traffic Planning to McMahon Associates. Jim?
This project was approved by town meeting prior to the pandemic. I believe it was back in the fall of 2019. We decided not to go forward with it at the time because traffic was just not, to the level that it should really be at. We all know everybody was staying home and working. If you've driven through downtown Walpole at any time, you can see the traffic's back out there. Carl's ready to move forward with this. He's been working with McMahon on this, so I'd recommend favorable action. We have a good relationship with them, and they've worked on the intersection of Polly and Short with us too, so
Great.
favorable action.
Any comments or questions?
I do. Yeah, I think, and actually, I meant to say something after the recreation programming and feasibility study as well, but if anybody, is watching this at home or watching it on YouTube, please feel free to reach out on any of these bids and contracts, because the majority of these had a substantial amount of time and effort put forward by, folks at Town Hall, by Jim in his office, by other department directors and heads. So there's a lot of information there that people can have if they want to reach out, understand what's being done, and what the bids were. So I encourage people to reach out to me or any other board member if they want to. And I would say also to follow up on what Jim said about the downtown traffic planning. We have the master plan that we're going to hear a little bit about more tonight, and an update from Glenn. We have the recreation department programming feasibility study. So we want to have all of these studies and all of this work done to understand what we're going to do going forward in town, because we need to have a reasonable roadmap. This traffic study is something, as Jim said, that's been in the works for many years, and it's going to be absolutely critical to the information that the town makes, that this board has, that the planning board has when they make their decisions. It's just going to be very helpful. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting that information, and if there's any other support that's needed from the board or input, please feel free to reach out, because I think we'd love to be involved, and I'd love to be involved in it. So it's a big deal.
Great, thanks, Ben.
Yep.
Jim?
Motion to award contract for Transportation Engineering Services, Downtown Walpole Traffic Planning to McMahon Associates, and authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up, Recreation Department event requests. You want to talk about these? Come on up. First of all, let me just say that Recreation Department's doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
I think that, it was really hard during COVID, but whenever possible, I know you were still trying to get events run, especially outdoor events, and do what you could with what you had. And, one of the things that I enjoyed is that when Walpole Media was starting to film even things like rec basketball at the high school, that was awesome because parents couldn't go, kids couldn't go and watch, but yet it was still on TV. So, it was great how you've been working with everybody to kind of keep as much happening as possible. So thanks for that.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but, as you can see by these requests, we're hoping to kind of get back in the swing of things and get Walpole Day, the concerts, bring those events back to Walpole. So these are, typically annual events. Obviously with COVID, we had to kind of take a hiatus there, but, if anyone has any questions with regard to any of these events, I'm more than happy to answer.
Any comments or questions?
No, looking forward to them.
Jim?
Motion to approve request of the Recreation Department to hold Walpole Day event and parade on Saturday, June 11th, 2022. To use the town common to hold the 28th annual Concerts on the Common series beginning in July, and to hold the National Night Out on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022 on Stone Field.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Keep the ideas coming.
Will do.
Next up, vote request of Jason Noto for one-day entertainment permit. Any comments or questions? Jim?
I'll move to approve the request of Jason Noto for a one-day entertainment permit at 36 Millbrook Avenue for a DJ on June 4th, 2022, from 5:30 PM to 10 PM.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up, we're going to get an update on both the Walpole School Building Committee and the Master Plan Steering Committee. How about if we do the Master Plan Steering Committee first, since I see Phil in the audience, so.
Yeah, actually, Phil, can you come up? I introduced Phil Chakowski as a member of the planning board. I just want to briefly say, I'm the select board appointed member on the master plan committee. And the Walpole Planning Board last year embarked on this effort to revise the master plan, which the last time that happened was 2004. It's an effort to basically help us all envision a brighter future for Walpole. There's 14 volunteers representing various parts of the community, including businesses, schools, water and sewer, conservation, many others. And we're working along a professional consulting group that's been hired by the town to identify what Walpole was and what it is and what it should be. In other words, where are we going and what's the best way to get there? So Phil, if you don't mind, that's just like a broad sweeping statement, and Phil's been in the trenches and could talk a little bit more.
Welcome, Phil.
Yeah, no, first, thank you, the board, and thank Glenn for this opportunity to speak. So the Walpole Master Plan Steering Committee has been hard at work, and I want to thank the members of the committee. That people have been really good at attending meetings and doing the background work that make all this successful. I also want to thank Pat Deshane. He's been the staff member from the town, and he's been just phenomenal in supporting us and going out of his way to make sure he's at meetings. And we've done a lot of meetings through Zoom and also helping post things on the internet. So he's been a huge help. And then lastly, the Barrett Planning Group, that's our professional help. They come in with a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we're really benefiting from that. They've done a really good job, I think, through the process and guiding us. So right now, where we are, we've just completed the visioning part of the process, and we that's where we went out to the community to get input, as Glenn said. We had 45 people attend our public forum. We had 750 people who responded to the survey, and then we had 150 people respond to the Miro boards for getting input. And then we also did some boards that people could put stickers on, like at the library, and we've had a lot of comments from that. And then lastly, we offered a meeting in a box where people on the board or other people could actually take all the information for a meeting and organize it themselves. And I think that was really important because it gave us an opportunity to reach out to segments of the population that may not have been engaged. So for example, Carrie went out to the school and the high school and actually talked to high school students. So we got their input. So that was that was all good. So all of this data has come in, and where we are right now is that Judy Barrett from Barrett Planning, her and her team have taken all those inputs, and by the way, this takes a lot of analysis, because you have so many different ways of people presenting what they want. So, but taking all that and coming up with a shared vision and objectives, and that would go into the plan. So this is not their vision, it's what came out of looking at all the comments. So they've completed that, and that was presented to our committee, and that will go into the master plan, and that's still gonna be revised, through the process. So the other part of the first step was to do the research on where the town is, the current state of the town. So they've gone to get demographic information, census information, all the information going through the town boards to find out about, what Walpole is. So they're just completing that, and that will go to the committee. And so what we're doing is we're gonna be looking at that report, and our job as committee members is to make sure it's accurate. So in order to do that, we've divided the committee up into 6 work groups. So there are 10 elements, I won't go through them, but there are 10 elements that are gonna go into the plan. 7 of them are mandated by state statute, and then 3 were added by us, by Walpole, during the select board meetings. So there's 10 elements, and those include things like land usage, transportation, open space. So and I could list them if you want, but those are the 10. So Judy and her team have put together all the information that they have gathered, and we have the 6 work groups. And the reason we did work groups is to make sure that for each element, we have people on the committee who are really giving due diligence to go through it. If we just gave the whole report to all 13 members, people may, specialize. Everybody's going to be interested in zoning, maybe, or open space, but may not be looking at some of the other areas. So the 10 elements have been divided by these 6 work groups. And then the other reason for having the work groups is because when Judy and her team gets the comments, they didn't want to get, and again, this is from their lessons learned, they don't want to have 13 people giving the same comment. So the work groups will take the comments from the committee members, and we'll go through and consolidate them. And there's this form that Judy has that we'll use, and it's all tracked. So when we give a comment, we give the source of where maybe the different information is. They will comment back on each one, so how they resolve it, so we will know that. So that's the reason for the work groups. They're gonna meet following open meeting law, so the meetings will be scheduled, and anyone on a work group, so for example, Glenn is on the services, the buildings and services work group, which is one of the elements. Each member, though, is open to go, is welcome to go and look at any other section. We'd rather everybody reads all sections, in other words. So it's not means just because a member of the committee's in one work group, they can't look at other sections. It's just to make sure that we're giving due diligence. So that process is just starting, and that will be, our committee will be looking at that. And on April 27th, we're gonna have a public forum where we're gonna present that, and then we're gathering comments back from the public. So again, the whole process always is whatever we do, we have a forum so that the public has a chance to comment on that. So that is the next big step. And then that'll be followed, there's 2 more public forums based on the work. So the next big one will be on when we complete the work for the implementation goals. So what comes out of this is the vision and the goals, and then implementation steps, the concrete things. So there will be a forum for that, and then and actually there won't be a forum, but that will be where we will be. The committee will be working on that with Bear. And then the last forum, though, actually is looking at the draft of the master plan. And the draft is due to be completed on August 31st. Public comments will be on September 15th. And then following that, we will be doing whatever revisions and taking those comments And, we'll be presenting that to different boards, including the select board, looking for, so you get a chance to also look at it. And completing the master plan, by sometime after September 15th, hopefully getting it all done by the end of the year. Going through the, because it has to go back to the planning board for approval, although that approval is not really having a lot of meaning. I mean, but we'd like to also get it approved by the select board. It would be good to get all the, the major town boards to weigh in on this, and including, presenting it at town meeting in some fashion. So again, I want to thank, all of the members of the committee, and certainly thanking our town departments who gave a lot of the input in the beginning days. So, that was very instrumental for their planning to get, a view of the town, which is what they're giving back to us now, and we're making sure that it's accurate, so.
One of the things I think is, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
That is one of the better parts of this process is it's not, when I say there are 14 of us who are representative of different parts of the town, it's not 14 of us in a room.
13.
Oh, 13, thank you, and making these decisions, without public input. We're reaching out to the public, and we're not doing it sort of in a like haphazard way. We're reaching out to populations that aren't engaged. We're going into people's homes, literally. We're inviting people to the high school. We're doing it during the day and at night. We're going to the Walpole Library, and we're just trying to engage with the population to get their feedback, so that this isn't a document that reflects a segment of thoughts and processes. And we want to bring everybody under the
That's right,
tent.
and that's very important. So when the Barrett Planning Group has written up their vision, the vision and goals, that's not them doing it. That's them taking all of the input we got. And that's not an easy task to do, by the way, to take a lot of different comments and try to make it be a coherent and a very actionable kind of thing. What do people really want? And I think they've done a really good job by doing that.
I would just say I'm impressed. It sounds like you had about 1,000 people at the front end give you feedback, which is very impressive to get that many people to respond. And it sounds like you had a variety of methods. You had meetings and online processes, and you made it easy for them to give you some feedback. I think that's very impressive, so.
Yeah, so some people are more familiar with doing the online survey. Some people were more comfortable doing the mirror boards we did, which is a newer way to getting input, and all of them had a place. And then, of course, we would have preferred doing more in-person things, but again, given the day.
Given COVID.
But for example, one of our meetings was at the meeting in a box was at the senior center. So as Glenn said, we tried to reach out to all the different communities and make sure that it's not just the people who come to all the meetings. It's also people who may not be as involved, but are just important in getting what they think of Walpole. So again, I think the set of vision and goals, I think it really reflects what we were hearing. All of us board members, all of us committee members, were at those meetings hearing the input. So that was the way that we could confirm what we were getting back from the Barrett Group. And I think it really, like I said, reflected what we were also hearing.
Great. Any other comments or questions?
I would just say that I've sat in on a couple of the bigger meetings. I did do the online survey. I also was involved in one of the smaller meetings, which unfortunately I had to leave early, but had some opportunity to provide input on the visioning. And I have to say, I think it's a good process that you're running, and I appreciate the organization of it. I echo the points that were made about the sort of breadth of mechanisms that you have around getting input from the public, because I think it's really important. The meetings are well organized, they're efficient, they move right along. And the process feels really good to me. You've just laid out a calendar for us that says, by September 15th, we'll have the thing largely done, and we'll get to socializing it through the boards and have it, to town meeting and hopefully completed by the end of the year. That sounds like a really reasonable time frame. I know you still got a lot of work to do, and there'll be many more forums for people who attend, but that sounds like a good time frame, and it's a hard but important piece of work as it sets the stage for the next 10 or 20 years. And so really appreciate the work you're doing, Phil, Glenn, same to you, and to everybody who's been participating. And I would just encourage anybody to get involved in this. The more input that we get on the master planning effort, the better off we're gonna be. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
Ben, any comments, or you good?
Just thanks, great update, really appreciate it.
I did want to make a comment on one other item, because I know you're part of the green community as well. And I noticed, I know that we have crews, or they have crews in South Walpole and North Walpole, putting in the LED lights. And I was out late the other night, very late. And as I drove in from 109, I noticed that an awful lot of those lights have already been converted to the LEDs. And it's a nice light, it gives better light. And I'm gonna bet that a lot of people haven't really noticed them because they're not noticeably different. It's a slightly whiter light. But it's really happening, and we're really glad we're gonna be able to convert all our lights by using that combination of the grant and some town money to make that happen. So it's going well, it seems like.
It's going very well. They are cruising along. I'm really impressed with the company that's been working with us. So much so we may ask them to come back to kind of serve as our light rangers to replace any bulbs that might be out in the future. They did up near Lincoln Road near me, and it's so much brighter up there. I can totally see the difference. Yeah, and they're set to be completed by June 1st, but they've told us they're well ahead of schedule. The snow hasn't really slowed them down much at all.
And for people at home, basically what happened is we bought the lights from the power company. We're converting them to LED. So there's a payoff period where we have to pay off the cost of buying those lights. But it's gonna save us a lot of money over time because the LEDs are so much more efficient, and it's gonna save a lot of energy. So just wanted to mention that because I knew you were interested in that, so.
Thank you, Phil, for helping to spearhead that as well.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to see that happen, by the way. It's actually a big thing for, I think, for Walpole to get that done, so. I want to thank you're the board, Jim, and, for working that through. I also just really want to mention very quickly to that, so one of the elements that that are included in our 10 is climate change and resiliency, and that was a result of your board, as you were going through the process to put out the request for quotes for the consultant company. So that is one of the elements that we, Walpole, added, which is, getting into some of those areas. So, and for anyone listening, I also just want to have people tune in to the different meetings. We really encourage people to attend these open forums where we're going to be presenting things, because if you didn't get a chance to give comments for the first go-around, there's a chance to give comments on the next two, and they're just equally as important. So the more comments we get, the better the plan will reflect what Walpole is. So again, I want to thank you for the time tonight and take one.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, and I'd suggest maybe whenever it's appropriate, but maybe next quarter, do the same thing. You can both sort of give us an update on where you stand, so. Great, thank you.
No, and thank you. And again, I want to thank all the members of the board and Pat Duchesne and Barrett Consulting, Barrett Planning Group that's done a great job. So thank you.
Great,
Great work, Phil. Thanks.
So next up, Ben's going to give us an update on the Walpole School Building Committee and the process on the middle school.
You want me to go sit over there?
You can if you want, but you don't have to.
No, so just briefly, and again, just to echo what we've been saying throughout the entire meeting is, reach out if folks have questions. They're watching this and they want to know a little bit more details. Believe me, we have all the details that you could need for any of these projects. So big picture, as we know, the town voted to go forward with this project in November of last year. The project funding agreement to agree for payment and reimbursement from the state was reached with the MSBA. And so what that does is it allows the project to move into the design development phase, or the DD phase. That's where they are now. And what that means is that they've put together programmatic working groups made up of folks from town hall, the building department, facilities, the school administration, teachers, anybody who is a stakeholder in this process, will be working in the building or working on the building, is involved in this design development phase. And I mentioned programmatic working groups because they break it into interior finishes, exterior finishes, tiles, paint, what the walls are made of, insulation, TVs, and all the other communications that are needed, electrical, heating. All of that is broken out into these groups, and they really delve into the details to identify what we need and what we want. What that allows the designers to do is, at the end of the DD phase, to come in, which is is actually coming up now in March, and they'll have what's called the Design Development Package. And so that is a really strong idea of what this school is going to look like, what's going to go into it as far as finishes and materials, and then they take that package, that DD package, and they do an estimate. And that is an updated estimate on what the cost for construction is going to be. So two really big, I guess I could say milestones coming up. One is completion of the design package, design development package. The second is the estimate then of that updated design, how much it's going to cost to construct. And then the third is selection of a construction manager. So the town has hired an owner's project manager, OPM, that's Compass. We've hired an architect, that's Tape Architects. And really the third piece or the third leg of that stool then is the construction manager. They come in, they work with the OPM and the architect to construct the building. So that is going to be going forward in March and the beginning of April as well, selecting that entity. And that process already started. They got they got over a dozen names for qualifications, statement of qualifications. They'll narrow that down to select a handful of finalists to submit a package for a bid. And then once that's confirmed, we move into the construction documents phase where they fine-tune all the details, and they roll that out and talk about beginning construction, possibly some of the early work around the site and getting the foundations and the site ready as soon as the fall of 2022. That's smaller work. And then starting in earnest with the construction at the beginning of 2023, possibly as soon as December 2022, as far as the long range goes. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Great.
Ben, I think there's a community forum coming up.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Jim. There are 3 more community forums coming up over the next 6 to 7 months. And as those dates are finalized, that'll be going out. They'll be putting out email blasts through school emails to parents. They'll be letting all the different boards know so that we can put it out there. That information will be put out well in advance so that people can come in and ask questions and get additional details of the project as it's moving forward.
Is there one on March 9th? I think that's one that's scheduled.
I hadn't heard that had been finalized yet.
Okay.
But they'll be coming up.
Okay,
Great, thanks for the update.
Yep.
thanks.
Let's see, consent agenda, multiple donors, Jim?
Yes, motion to accept with gratitude the following donation, multiple donors to Recreation Smiling Eyes Financial Assistant.
Second?
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2022 as presented in our packet.
Motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Town administrators update?
Sure, just a few items here. Finance Committee FY '23 budget, I mentioned that Finance Committee's gone through, met with all the departments, and including the school department, Tri-County, and the Aggie School last night. Reviewed the budgets. They're going to be voting on the overall budget, I believe, next Thursday evening. Everything's going well, and they're making their way onto the articles. ARPA funds, the majority of the ARPA funds requests that the board submitted about a month and a half ago have been received. The county has a few minor questions on one of the smallest requests, which is the HVAC system at the high school. Nothing major, but everything's going very well with them. They've been great to work with. And earlier this evening, I met with the sewer and water commissioners and reviewed the proposed FY '23 sewer and water budgets with them and the current rates that we are considering. At this time, the recommended rate increases are 18% on the water side and 11% on the sewer side, which is high. I talked to them about why they're so high. We explained that in the past they have been low, and they've known that they've been low because they've been voting on them, and that we need to begin to make this up one way or another. The commissioners understood this. They asked me through the chair, John Splain, he said, can you give us a few other options? One of the options that was recommended to the town back in 2020 by the Abrahams Group was to do a set fee for capital infrastructure, general infrastructure, and future infrastructure improvements. The commissioners asked me to show them a rate structure that includes that on everybody's bill, whether you're $10 a quarter or $1,000 a quarter. So we we can easily do that. We're gonna put that together, and I said, we'll get this, and we'll try to get it back before the next meeting. So, they're working with us, and the Finance Committee is set to discuss their budget next week. So more to come on it. I understand it is a drastic increase, but we need to make this up somehow. My point to them was we cannot continue to rely on retained earnings to continue to balance the budget year in and year out, multiple times a year, because this past year we've done it twice in 1 year for some of those budgets, and it just isn't sustainable long-term. I think some of them understand that, and I'll continue to keep the board updated. So that's it.
Can I chime in on that real
Sure,
quick? So
please.
I think one of the drivers that got us to this point was when we implemented the inclining block rate structure that was essentially discouraging excessive water use. Instead of just watering your lawn all day, you can still do that within the framework that we allow on the days that you're allowed to do it, the odd even days. But you're gonna pay for it. And what happened is people started using a lot less water. And when we sell less water, we bring in less revenue. When we bring in less revenue, we still have to pay our people, we still have to treat the water, chemicals, and we still have to run the treatment plants. So our expenses don't necessarily go down. So we were selling a lot less water. So it makes sense, this fixed rate charge that Jim's talking about and they're exploring makes a lot of sense, because it guarantees a certain minimum revenue. And so everybody, instead of, well, how much water did you use, you'll pay based on that. Everybody will pay $20, and then you'll pay based on water use. And so it's not a rate increase. The 18% is a rate increase, but this isn't a rate increase over and above that. This just guarantees a certain amount of revenue, and then we'll actually lower our rates. So we still want to bring in the exact same amount of revenue for the year, for the fiscal year. It'll just change how we bring the revenue in. A lot of towns do this, so it'll guarantee a certain amount of revenue per household. If you start off, you could use zero water, you're gonna pay $20 or whatever the number is, and then you'll pay based on usage. So it makes a lot of sense. A lot of towns do it. It gives us more certainty at the end of the year, instead of, if we have a dry year or if we have a wet year, instead of having the water usage fluctuate and us having to deal with the resulting revenue decreases and adapt sort of on the fly, it just helps us maintain the system in a better way, in a more predictable way. So it makes a lot of sense.
And to build on that point, the other thing that the people at home should know is one of the things that sewer and water commissioners are responsible for is updating the infrastructure. So we have a lot of old pipes in the ground, and it's important to upgrade a certain percentage of those pipes every year. Even if a pipe breaks, they go fix it. But it's important to stay on top of your infrastructure. And I don't know what that percentage is, but it's probably in the neighborhood of 5%. So you should be replacing a certain amount of pipe every year. Same with the sewer system. So it's important for them to stay on top of it. And that's one of my worries when they continue to use retained earnings to reduce water rates, is that retained earnings really is there to help line up all the, pipe replacement and projects that need to be done. So, I think they have a complicated job, and, I think they have to look at that big picture. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's it. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Jim? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.